excited to have him on today's call, and I've got some questions I'm going to be asking him. So, Dr. Horst Fitzer, it's a privilege to have you on today's call. I'm excited. It's been a long time since I got an opportunity to talk with you. How are you today?
I'm very well, Eli. Thank you. It's a spectacular, beautiful day right now in Arizona because it's now under 100 degrees, which won't last very long. But anyway, it's a beautiful day, and I'm happy to be in your call.
I remember I've seen you at different functions, and I've had an opportunity to spend time with you, not just, having you on the stages of our, events, from when I first started our GU events, and you appeared for me at the very first event we ever did, and we were so excited, and we knew that we would draw hundreds and thousands of people to come to events because you appeared. I mean, you came there, but you were always so kind to accept our invitation and to come. But then also, I remember, just spending time with you personally, also calling you, asking you for advice, and also spending time, I can remember in Oklahoma, after the event, we all went upstairs, and everybody got a chance to see that you are a real human being. Sometimes we stutter when we're around somebody that is at such a high level, as you are. I've obviously been doing this since 1965, and you are renowned in what you do, and but the fact is that you always used to tell me, "Hey, Eli, call me Horst," and I didn't even know how to do that because I felt like how could I do that? But you were always so kind to me, and you made me feel more that you were like someone that I could talk to, and that I could ask questions to. So I wanted to ask you, being that you graduated from Harvard University, you are a vascular surgeon, you're a medical doctor. I mean, you've got a wound care center in Arizona currently, in Bullhead City, Arizona. Was that something that Enagic wanted to have somebody at this level of medicine as an advisor? Was that a prerequisite when they first met you? How did you and Enagic sort of come together when you first started?
Well, you might recall some time ago, over 10 years ago, I was introduced to the water quite accidentally through a friend, actually through a patient of mine, and having fundamentally never been one to drink much water, I was totally impressed with the product. It seemed to give me a different perspective when I drank the water. It went down easily, it was refreshing, it tasted good, and over time I thought it had a healthy effect on me. And based on that, I made a video. You remember we used to kind of make testimonials, and I did one. And somehow people liked that video. And based on that video, Enagic asked me if I could become their medical advisor. And that was in 2008 in the spring, and sort of the rest is history. My function, as I see it as medical advisor, is first of all to help the company avoid pitfalls that are kind of a slippery slope, like making disease-based claims for the water, because we all know that while the water is special and has some extremely specialized provable functions, early on we didn't know the exact proof behind the water. So we made all kinds of statements about Dr. Warburg, statements about microclustering, and statements about antacid activity, statements about pH regulation, antioxidant activity, etc. But my point was, over time, those statements weren't backed up by hard data. If you stick ORP meter into 9.5 pH water, you show that it is an antioxidant in the test tube. Does that show what it does in the body? Does this mean when you drink that water, your body is presented with a workable antioxidant within its cells? And those questions were never answered. In 2015, I met with Mr. Oshiro and persuaded him to let me do some initial studies on that. And the initial studies consisted of studies within human red and white blood cell cultures. And the reason we did that was simply that that's relatively inexpensive. And my thought was for Mr. Oshiro that if I can show this in tissue culture, if I can show the antioxidant effect, the anti-inflammatory effect, and maybe something else in tissue culture, then we could proceed and spend some earnest money on real living human participants studying this water for like stress responses or a variety of things. And that's when the second phase of this book was generated after these studies were completed.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, that's a mouthful for most of us because you're right. We, and of course, the company has always told us, don't try to be a medical doctor, and don't talk like one, since most of us are not. And the fact is, I remember the early days when I used to do, everybody did demonstrations, and some people would use ORP meters, and we heard about certain properties. We heard the word antioxidant. We heard the word anti-aging. We heard words like anti-inflammatory. We heard the word microclustering. I guess, maybe if you, wouldn't mind, if you could maybe just kind of tell us, what have you found from what these studies that you're telling me now by doing it on real human beings, as I'm listening to you on the red and white blood studies, that you are basically giving us the facts. Maybe you could just touch upon some of those facts for us, because there's a lot of people on today's call, and it's spreading. As you guys are listening right now, you might want to be texting and sending emails out, people to hurry up and get on this call. What is it that you have found that we should know?
Right. Let me, first of all, make a couple of preliminary comments.
Okay.
If you want to prove anything in science, you have to apply a scientific method that others can duplicate exactly, and others can come to the same conclusion. You need a rigorous scientific application, and you need laboratories that have a high approval rate, that are checked by the government for accuracy, and that have a wonderful track record about producing results. And we have found that in the Natural Immune System Laboratory in Klamath Falls. So when this laboratory does any studies and publishes the results, these results are scientifically correct and scientifically proven and virtually unassailable. This is what we did first. We took red cell and white cell tissue cultures and then did some other study of mitochondrial function in an immune fluorescence system. Bottom line is the following. When these human cells are exposed to Kangen water 9.5 and different pHs, routinely they affect an antioxidant function in the cell. So, side by side, regular tap water without the ionization, without the electrolysis, cannot do that. And so right here is a differentiation between Kangen water and tap water. Yes, tap water is good for us. Yes, it quenches our thirst. It does not have antioxidant properties like Kangen water. It does not reduce the inflammatory response like Kangen water. And finally, the mitochondria, which is a organelle, which is part inside each cell. You can look at it like the engine of your cell, where all the energy is produced in the form of adenosine triphosphate, which is what we need to power our muscles, our nerves, our everything. When you drink this Kangen water, the function of that mitochondria is upregulated. By up, it becomes more efficient. And regular water does not do that. So that was phase one.
Okay.
Okay, now phase two, after Mr. Oshiro saw these results and after we met again, we set up with the laboratory a series of steps we were going to take over time. One experiment proving one thing and then going on to others. So the first thing we did was we did a human trial using 12 healthy volunteers. Klamath Falls is a college town, so this was easy to recruit 12 healthy people who were going to be stressed in a standard exercise test. And these consist of sit-ups and push-ups and stuff where the body is stressed by the exercise to raise its blood pressure, to raise its heart rate, to sweat a little, and to basically mimic what an athlete would do for a fixed, rigorous period of time. Initially, these people, all 12 people, drank regular pH 8.5 tap water from Klamath Falls, which is considered pretty good water because it comes out of a volcanic lake. And they then underwent these stress episodes with exercise, and they had blood, serum, and plasma collected. They had lactate acid measured in their blood. They had their heart rates and so on measured. And they also underwent a psychologic test, which studied their response to the stress personally. How did they feel before, after, during, etc.? And this is a scientifically accepted psychological test that produces consistent results. Now, then they underwent a washout period of 2-3 weeks where they did their usual routine, and then for 3 weeks again they drank Kangen water, 9.5, 3 liters. By the way, we took all comers, except we did not allow anybody in the study who smoked. And that was because I think that would have muddied the waters, and I didn't want that. I wanted it all to be consistent. When the results came in, after all the bloods were drawn and what have you, we were permitted to make, by the data, the following conclusions. People that exercised and were stressed had a significant elevation in their red blood cell count when they were drinking Kangen water. This was highly statistically significant, and because of that, we have the right to conclude that their oxygen carrying capacity was increased by Kangen water. This is important for athletes. You know, long distance runners, they go to Colorado or they go to somewhere high in the mountains. Why? Because there, from the altitude, they build up their red cell mass. They come back with a higher red blood cell count and better oxygen consumption. We also found that the people were, when they were on Kangen, had a reduced inflammatory response by measuring neutrophil degranulation. In other words, they took the stress better. They did not react as violently to the stress because the water subdued the inflammation. And then finally, from a psychological point of view, they recovered from the stress faster and several days later felt back to normal much more rapidly than the non-Kangen water exercise-related group. In addition, 60 samples of serum and plasma were put into a freezer for each participant to be analyzed at a later date. And so this is the study we have just again implemented, because through preliminary and early sales of the book, I've been able to fund the research, at least the beginning of the next phase. And the next phase is going to show that there are cytokines, which are little messengers inside each cell that have a specific function related to inflammation, related to immune function, related to metabolism. We also are going to study a powerful enzyme called superoxide dismutase, which is made by our body in the liver and is the most powerful defense force against inflammation and free radicals that our human body can make. And I predict that Kangen water will show this enzyme to be materially upregulated, because we have circumstantial evidence from the early study. But these studies are expensive, and we're now in that phase, and I am raising the money through the sales of the book to get to that endpoint and then build on that further, and also to get our data published in the international and national medical literature.
Oh,
I hope that summarizes it for you.
Wow. So, this is, I mean, just coming from a leadership position, I'm obviously a layman. I mean, I'm taking notes, I'm learning, I'm understanding, and as you talked about, how these studies were, done on students in Oregon, 12 of them, and how they were, they drank from the normal water that came out, in that area, and then obviously then they waited 2 to 3 weeks, and then drank the Kangen water. Obviously, you didn't use any smokers, and so talking about the stress and heart rates and the psychological effects, and how they felt before and after. And then, of course, like you said, you then kind of let that period go with it washed out, and then you start again, and having them drink our water, and then, doing these kinds of, testing on after they've exercised and then rested. And I know, because I've recently just started going back into the gym, because I know of, where I am, my age in my life, and how important it is that, I'm noticing that when I don't drink this water, I notice I'm dragging. I don't seem to have the same level of energy, and so I have to do that. So all of these things that you're talking about, and how you're saying that the water subdued inflammation, that is, again, how I'm understanding it, there seems to be sort of an increase of oxygen. That is increasing red blood cells. I don't know if I'm saying that right, and that's important to us as human beings to have that. Does the red blood cells help us fight off illnesses, disease, things like that, or?
I think not so much fighting off disease, but when you increase your red cell mass, you increase your hemoglobin, and hemoglobin allows you to carry more oxygen. And oxygen is important in exercise. You need it for your muscles to work. You need it for your nerves to function. You need it to create energy. And so here you drink water which has 0 calories, and you feel and you're made to produce more energy just by doing that. And that's very, very important. Look at all these sports drinks and all these things that people saying are going to boost your exercise and all that. Well, if you look at these things closely, they have all kinds of ingredients that I submit are not necessarily great for you. Fructose, caffeine, all kinds of different things. And here, this single natural product actually cranks up your exercise performance and your exercise tolerance. Now, I just wanted to interject this to make one crystal clear point. These are not medical claims. A medical claim surrounds an illness. These are healthy people whose blood and whose body fluids and whose measurements have been checked scientifically. And so that's not a claim, it's a fact.
Okay. I understand. So basically, it's a no-brainer. I mean, to me, I know that also, like, people sometimes, you know, when I tell them my age, and I just turned 65 years young, and I might be talking to a guy that's in his 50s, and they don't believe me, and they said, "You how old is that?" And then so I don't know, has the water helped us that are drinking this water, and can you drink too much of it? How much should we drink? But I mean, I try to drink as much as I can, and sometimes I fall short and only drink a half a gallon, and sometimes I do better, and I try to work my way more than that, or maybe 3 or 4 quarts on a great day. You know, so does that help us in terms of not only adding more energy, which would obviously help us feel better? Does that also affect us in areas like sleeping, and does that affect us because you're talking about stress levels here, and so the fact is that so many of us, or most of us, are stressed out from life, from work, from just the everyday ups and downs of life. And so does the fact that I'm understanding this water seems to be increasing oxygen and helps you, again, with the stress levels, so thereby that is something that's more healthy for us than drinking sports drinks, which, like as you said, have caffeine and have, you know, sugars, and which I'm always hearing sugars are so bad. Can we drink too much water, or how much water is advisable to drink?
Well, let me make it crystal clear. You can drink too much water because it's been done before. There have actually been deaths from drinking too much water, but it's not because of the alkalinity. It's because water has minerals in it, but they are in a diluted form compared to our plasma. Our plasma will have 140 milliequivalents of sodium, for example, and water will have 90. So if you drink too much water, ionized or not, you will dilute that sodium in your plasma, and you will be subject to potential seizures or cardiac arrest or both. And so water intoxication is possible, and it is been reported when people drink too much water. But that has nothing to do with the alkalinity. It just has to do with the volume. So what's a reasonable volume? I think half a ounce per pound of body weight, with not exceeding, say, 180 or 190 pounds. People who weigh 400 pounds and are obese will not benefit by drinking half an ounce per pound, because that's insane. That's just too much. So cap it at about 200 pounds. And then, you know, you would have 200 pounds, half an ounce, that'd be 100 ounces max. The average person, if you drink 3 to 3.5 quarts over a day's time, it's perfectly adequate. And for some smaller people, they might need even less. Now, look, I live in the desert here in Arizona. When it's 125 degrees, you can drink 2 gallons of water because it's going to be out of your pores in seconds. So again, keep the ambient temperature in mind. And one most important thing, Let your thirst be your guide. If you're thirsty, have some extra water.
Okay, that helps me a lot, and I hope it helps everybody on the call, because that's definitely a question that a lot of times people have asked. And also drinking water with medicine. I don't know why, but we sometimes we're not sure. Do we drink it? Do we wait 30 minutes? Do we? I just was talking to someone about that yesterday. Is that something that we should do, or does it matter when we take if someone is on medicine, whether it's an antibiotic or, you know?
Well, the company has a certain caveat about that. They suggest that medicine be ingested with the neutral water, and for about 20 minutes of rest. Thereafter, you can drink the regular water, Kangen water, any way you want. That's the company's suggestion. Medications are built nowadays. They have what is called a capsule that dictates at which portion of the gut they're going to be absorbed, and they have a vehicle that suspends the medicine. So it's very, very difficult. Look, if you're in a nursing home, they grind up the pills in applesauce. You know, what does that do? I don't know. I'd say the neutral water and a sip of that to swallow your medicine, and 10 to 15 minutes later, you're good to go, and then the company's happy, and there's no... I personally drink my Kangen water 9.5, one big 16-ounce glass, first thing in the morning, with my blood pressure pills, which I've gone from 12 a day to 2, and I've never had a problem with it.
Okay, fair enough. That's really good to know. How about before and after eating? Does it matter?
I don't think it matters much. I mean, look,
okay.
Because what am I going to do? I'm going to eat my food dry? No. I want to wash it down with some water. Why not Kangen water? The best way, of course, to get a good drink is to have an empty stomach and drink that water, because the stomach will actually absorb Kangen water. It is that efficiently absorbed because of the microclustering effect, which is real. And so an empty stomach also is neutral. There is this constant debate about, doesn't your stomach acid neutralize the alkaline water? And the answer is, strict physiology shows there's a mucus barrier on top of the parietal cells that make the acid, and that when you drink water, these cells are not activated. When you drink alcohol, these cells are intensely activated. And so simple water does not activate your parietal cell mass, so there's virtually no dilution or no augmentation of the pH of that water you drink on an empty stomach.
Wow, that's a big one, because we hear that a lot, and that's good to know. So when we hear the words anti-inflammatory properties or antioxidant properties, and also we hear things like, I mean, does this these properties, and also metabolism, is metabolism affected? You know, like you're talking about how much water is good, a half an ounce per pound, not to exceed 200 pounds as a parameter, so that would not to exceed 100 ounces, I guess, or so, unless you're in Arizona, 120 degrees, and then you could drink more because it's going to just, you know, leave your pores
evaporate.
Anyway.
Yep.
So anti-inflammatory properties or antioxidant properties, and do these things also affect our metabolism?
Yes, we found that when you drink this water, that the mitochondria, which is your cellular engine, are able to metabolize glucose, which is our most common nutrient that gets into the cells, much more efficiently than with regular water.
Wow, so then basically that would help to increase metabolism?
It increases metabolism. This is why, we always ask these questions perennial of the new people who are onto the water. How many of you have lost weight? And almost immediately, 75% of the hands go up and they say they have. And that's why, because their metabolic rate has been cranked up and they've burnt the fuel. And when you burn the fuel and convert it to energy, over time you lose weight. You don't accumulate fats.
Okay. That totally makes sense to me. So does the water have anti-inflammatory properties like you were talking about, or and antioxidant properties?
Absolutely. It has those properties, and here is the difference. Not via an ORP meter, but by actual analysis of the red blood cell and the white blood cell, human cells they get an anti-inflammatory and an antioxidant capacity within them from the water. So it translates into a human physiologic function. And that's not a claim, that's a fact. And that's huge, because when people say, well, how the hell do you know it's an antioxidant, blah, 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 it's test tube and so on. Now the test tube is the human body. And the human body's test tube has accepted the antioxidants, has accepted the anti-inflammatory response, has accepted the upregulation of the mitochondria. And so you can tell your prospects, you can tell your clients, look, this is real stuff. This isn't some quack in Timbuktu telling you. This is a highly respected laboratory showing with a scientific method the facts. You remember Dragnet, Eli?
I'm sorry, say it again?
You remember the show called Dragnet? They always said, just the facts, ma'am. That's all we want.
Exactly. So when I hear the word microclustering, and I'm understanding that means that there's somehow smaller molecules and that helps absorption into the cell. Does the body process energy better because we're drinking Kangen water? Does that affect? Does the microclustering affect that, or does one have nothing to do with the other?
First of all, microclustering does occur. There is no question about it. It's been shown by nuclear magnetic resonance that we can, in fact, get small clusters, so-called hexagonal water or pentagonal water. Now, when you get to the absorption of water into the cell, it's only one molecule at a time. However, water gets into our system first by being absorbed in the intestinal villi, these little structures in the intestine and in the stomach that bring the water in through channels, not through individual pores, but through channels. And these channels are small. So when you have microclustered water, the intestinal villi absorb more of it into their interstitial space. The interstitial space is a fluid-filled space, and from that space, the water gets directed into the cell, and that's one molecule at a time. But picture it this way. If you have a water with regular-sized clusters of 126, 256, and so on, not as much of that will get into these villi, into this interstitial space, and the interstitial space doesn't get filled, and your water gets excreted into the colon, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where the advantage is. You get more of that glass of water into your intestinal interstitial space than you do with regular tap water.
So basically, that allows us to drink more water, because I remember when I was never a water drinker, Because to me, always it made me feel sort of, I guess, a feeling of fullness or bloated, being bloated. And I did notice that, when I drank this water, that I didn't have that feeling, and that's because of the microclustering?
Precisely. More of that water gets into that space I'm talking about within the intestinal villi, that interstitial space, and from there it's dispensed into our bloodstream. And when that water gets absorbed quickly into the interstitial space, you don't get that sloshing around feeling. You don't get that too much volume feeling. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And so basically, also the word anti-inflammation, and I seem to hear that a lot of times inflammation is associated with people not feeling well and illnesses and things like that. But this water does help in the anti-inflammatory, like you had said earlier, that basically inflammation isn't going to be as great with by drinking this water.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what I'm understanding is it has anti-inflammatory properties, microclustering properties, antioxidant. Tell me a little bit more about the antioxidant properties. And since I'm always hearing acidity is oxidation and antioxidant means, not as much oxidation.
Right. Antioxidants have the ability to reduce free radicals within our bloodstream, within our body fluids, and within our serum and everything else. When you have free radicals, these free radicals can cause damage. They can attach to parts of your artery, and they can set up a reaction, an inflammatory reaction there. And that inflammatory reaction, by virtue of it trying to heal, is going to result in scarring of an artery. It's going to result in a plaque. And over time, this can essentially block an artery. If it blocks an artery going to the brain, you have a stroke. If it blocks an artery going to your heart via the coronaries, you have a heart attack. If it blocks an artery in your legs or in your pelvis, you can't walk right. You get claudication or even gangrene. So these free radicals exist, and antioxidants function to neutralize them. They take that positive charge and give it the electron, and that makes it neutral, and it can't do squat. And this water provides an antioxidant to our system, to our body. Now, people take antioxidants, hundreds. Turmeric has antioxidant properties. Resveratrol in red wine has antioxidant properties. Many things have antioxidant properties, but here is a water. It's colorless, it's odorless, it's tasteless, it's clean, it's good, and it has an antioxidant function. You get it without paying for it.
Wow. And so when I think about other drinks as associated to water, when I think about tea and coffee and sports drinks and alcohol and all these different things, are they? Is it okay to drink coffee? Is it okay to drink tea as long as I'm drinking it with this water?
Well, listen, absolutely. You don't stop your life, because of certain things you like. You should enjoy whatever is good for you. I think we need to be critical of what we stick inside our body. Alcohol is wonderful in a glass of wine. Alcohol is terrible when you drink 2 bottles and wind up drunk. You know what I'm saying? It's moderation. And also some things are better than others. Green tea, wonderful antioxidant properties, good taste, popular. Those are the things you should focus on, I think. But that doesn't mean you can't have a coffee, you can't have a hot chocolate, you can't drink orange juice. Of course you can.
Does that mean the same thing with coffee? Because I hear so much controversy about coffee. So if I'm drinking a so-called antioxidant coffee, I don't know if there's such a thing, as opposed to, I'm sorry, Julina? Or non-acidic, so-called coffee, or regular coffee. I mean, and if I make it with the water, is coffee harmful to us by drinking that a lot of people start the day off with 1 or 2 cups of coffee.
Well, let me say this to you. If you didn't give me my first cup of coffee in the morning, I'd be intolerable to live with. I need that cup of coffee. Coffee is a wonderful drink. There is no real downside to coffee, except there are some people who are sensitive to it. They get a little tachycardia because caffeine is a stimulant. But, all these studies that have been alluded to about coffee causing cancer and this and that, it's baloney. Coffee is the safest thing you can drink on the planet. Again, if you eat your little caffeine rush in the morning, there's nothing wrong with that. If you drink 14 cups a day and you're wired to the end and intolerable to live with because you're half crazy, then that's not a good thing. Moderation and a safe product. Coffee is totally safe.
Wow, I think all the coffee drinkers are smiling right now. I'll be honest with you, I lacked information, and for 20 plus years, I nagged my wife not to drink it, and I don't know why. I had a misconception, and I recently, last couple of years, I just said, forget it. I'm just going to join her, and, I didn't feel any negative effects. She buys antioxidant coffee. So I guess when I think about enzymes, though, and is this water, are you doing tests around enzymes? Does this water does it help enzymes, or what are enzymes?
Well, we don't know yet, Eli. We don't know yet. We have the tissue samples. We have the blood samples. And that phase next is being analyzed. And as soon as I know something, and as soon as I have some hard data, you bet I will, spread the news. I have only good things to gain by studying this completely, thoroughly, and getting the facts straight. We don't know yet, but we're studying it. And because we know that it has certain effects to begin with, logic would presume that it will have positive enzyme effects. It will have positive cytokines effects. But, it's a little more time required to find out for sure. And I'll let you know about that as quickly as I can.
Wow! Thank you so much. And honestly, I guess my maybe last question is there anything that we should know about the studies that you're doing, the importance of the studies that you're doing, in terms of all of us here as distributors and also consumers of this water that I haven't asked you this morning that you feel is important to share with us?
Well, I think that, like I say, there is more to come, but what we have right now is significant. What we have right now is a factual presentation of the differentiation of Kangen water from tap water and from other waters. And I'm not going to talk or get into a competition type model here. I don't care what other manufacturers of ionizers do and with their water and how they study it. This is Kangen water, trademarked, and there are many reasons, which are solid scientific reasons, why this water does what it does. And those are things I wouldn't go into because if the competition knew that, they could fake it. And I'm not interested in helping them. I am interested only in Enagic and Kangen water.
Would you you know, as an expert in the field, studying this water for, it sounds like a decade when you first made your video. Do you feel that we have the best ionizer on the market? I mean, we people say, oh, man, there's competitors out there, and they're advertising that their water systems are half the price and twice as good, and mesh plates and this and that and this and that, and people get a little confused with that, and we just tell them, don't try to be a doctor, don't try to be a scientist. But obviously, we all believe and understand that this is sort of the Rolls Royce of water systems. Is there something that you can speak on that?
Yes. That's all I'm going to say. Yes.
Yes. Right.
Yes.
So exactly, and so the bottom line is that's fantastic. That's a confirmation that I'm going to take, and I appreciate that so much. I just want to thank you so much, Dr. Horst Fitzer, for giving us some basics here, but also more importantly, giving us the knowledge, but letting us know that you are studying. You're studying on real human beings. This study is, I think, critical for all of us here as distributors. I absolutely believe. I'm just telling Jelena right now. I want you to order 100 books because the name of the website again is EWA. That's E like Edward. I'm sorry, E like Enagic, W like water, A like affectionate, -USA.com. And I'm telling her right now, as a distributor, as a marketer, as a businessman, please, give me a minimum of 100 books right now, because I plan on giving this for every person I sell a book to. I plan on also giving this to prospects, people I care about. I want them to get some facts. I want them to get knowledge and understand that there's real studies being done, and so the fact that this is being done in a natural immunity laboratory in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and on real people, human beings. And it just seems to me that all of us together right today should come together and really hold hands on this, because, and by the way, does this non-for-profit organization accept donations? I mean, can we also donate towards this study that you are so graciously doing?
You can, and it's online. There is a way to do that just by logging in.
And you've been doing this study for how long now, Dr. Horst Fitzer?
We started in the July of 2015.
Okay. Well, I got to tell you, I am so excited about this. I'm excited about getting the book, reading the book, understanding it, so I am knowledgeable. I know that knowledge is power, and so people won't get stumped on certain things when they can't find someone to three-way to. They don't have anything handy, but that they can at least understand what it is that we are studying and why this is so profound. And I'm excited about the next level of studies where we'll start, because I'm always hearing about enzymes, the importance of enzymes, and I can't wait to hear the studies about the water and its effects on enzymes for the human body. And again, are you going to be appearing at our event in September at the 15-year anniversary at the Queen Mary? Will you be there?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be talking or not, but I will definitely be there, Eli.
So we'll all be able to see you there. Maybe come up to you, shake your hand, and get an autograph on the book. I mean, is that
Sure.
Okay. Well, I thank you so much. I hope that some of the questions I asked were good questions. I hope that the listeners got a lot of value out of this information today. I know I did, and I just appreciate you. I appreciate the contribution that you're making to Enagic, and to the fact is that this is probably the first study ever done And sometimes I say, Dr. Horst, that I heard it one time, and sometimes I'll say that that the whole thing about Kangen water is one of the most valuable, discoveries, of the last century. Just this whole idea of Kangen water. Do you feel that Kangen water is a major sort of contribution to humanity?
Yes, absolutely, I do. I feel strongly about it, or I wouldn't be in this, and I wouldn't be doing all of it. And I'll tell you, Eli, I predict we will get much more solid scientific data in the very near future. So I need to sign off because
thank you so much.
My wife is looking at me. But Eli, thank you for having me on the call. I look forward to seeing you soon. And if you can wait till the 14th, I'll give you plenty of books.
Okay, fantastic. Then I will wait till the 14th, and I thank you so much for being on today's call. You guys, today, this has, to me, been monumental, the fact that there is this research being done. It's been being done since 2015 by, the medical advisor to an addict. And the idea is that here we all have, I think, a responsibility to know more and to understand it, and to have a book like this that has the facts in it, that we can show people, and that we can read it first ourselves, understand it better, then we're coming more from a position of strength rather than feeling, like we don't know. He is going to be here in Torrance if you want to fly in to hear the lecture that he's going to be putting on the 14th of this month. He'll be appearing at 1:30. He's also going to be at the September event. You guys should all be purchasing your tickets for that event.